अस्सलाम वालेकुम and welcome to Pakistan Observer podcast. मेरा नाम अब्दुल्ला मलिक है और मेरे साथ आज मौजूद हैं Dr. Javier. Dr. Javier, thank you so much for being here. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for the invitation.
So, just for introductions, Dr. Javier is the country engagement lead for Global Partnerships for Education on mission in Pakistan to talk to us about all things education in Pakistan, the development and the future of education in the country. So excited to have you here, Dr. Javier. Excited to have a conversation with you and learn more about what you guys are doing and also the education in Pakistan and its development. Thank you for joining.
My pleasure.
For this very important conversation around International Day of Education, focusing on education in Pakistan, the development of education, and the way forward, looking at the future. Very excited to have this conversation with you. Thank you again for the time. I know that you have a lot of global experience, and then you narrow it down to Pakistan. You come here, you look at things. I want to understand, when you look at education as a priority on a global stage, what do you think? Is it a priority these days for global powers, or is it a reduced sort of priority at this point?
Well, I think that education is a priority, and maybe let me stress this, education is the priority. Education is a key for economic growth, a key driver of stable societies, and is a key driver to create climate resilient societies and countries. So I think now the world has several competing priorities, but if we think on longer term, if we think in how to improve the conditions of the well-being of the individuals in all countries around the world, education is the key investment that countries have to keep doing and focusing to improve the well-being of everyone and securing, as I said before, more stable and climate resilient societies.
Right. Javier, it is no secret, and we know this, that education and the lack of it is a big issue around the world. What are some of the common trends that you see across the countries that are lacking in educating their people, their masses, where education is seeming like it's lacking? What are some of the issues? Like, for example, there's a lot of chatter in Pakistan about poverty being one of the issues. When you look at education from a global lens, what's your experience been?
Well, there is ample evidence that, as I said before, education is a key driver of economic growth of countries, meaning that more educated countries grow faster. But that's like at a country level. But at the individual level, it's also, there is a lot of evidence that education is a key driver of your future income. So each additional year of education that you achieve in almost all the countries is related to an increase on your salary of 10%. So an extra year of education pays you 10% of a higher salary once you reach the labor market. So, and of course that implies that more educated people is less likely to fall into poverty.
Right.
But not only that, there is also ample evidence that more educated people are less likely to engage in risky health-related issues, so they are more healthy. But also, as I said before, education also promotes more stable, more peace, and societies that are more climate resilient.
Right.
No, in a way, they prepare us. Education prepares us to deal with different situations in a better way and create this general well-being of the population.
So, of course, you've told me the upsides of education, and there's a big economic angle of why it's beneficial to have an educated population. Why do you think countries are still not spending enough money on education as a priority?
I think, that may depend from country to country. Of course, some countries are starting from very low bases, and and they need to grow to be able to generate more resources to generate more resources to spend in education. And of course, then is when also you have international aid coming in to support and complement what countries are doing. But I think in general, there is this we need to convince countries or reconvince countries around the world that education is spending on education is maybe the best investment that they can make, and prioritize that. You know, so there are some benchmarks that we want countries to meet in terms of spending on education, allocating like 4 to 6% of GDP to education, or allocating 20% of your government finances to education. Many countries don't meet those benchmarks. Of course, many of those countries have also very strong competing issues, but you have to be, but countries have to be really clear that education is probably the best investment they can make, and each dollar they mobilize into education will multiply, because that's the power of education.
Do you also feel like education is sometimes not a priority in the sense of finances and the availability of them, because it is perhaps a long-term investment and countries are looking to sort of work on things that bring in benefits within a year, 2 years, 3 years?
Yeah, no, as I said before, countries, ministries of finance have several competing priorities. No? But as you rightly mentioned, I think the key here is to make those that make the decisions to realize that education is a long-term investment, but to reap the benefits, to obtain the benefits of those long-term investments, you have to start investing now. No, but again, there will be competing priorities, but you have to be sure, no, that the power of education and the power to multiply your investments in the sector.
Right. So Javier, let's come to Pakistan. Let's put the country in focus and understand. We have time and again been told over the last 2 years at least that education and the lack of it is now a national emergency. On one hand, we are being told that it is a national emergency. On the other, and I don't want to get the figures wrong, but there's 25.3 million children out of school. We spend a tiny amount of our GDP and our available finances on education. Where do you think we're having issues in actually treating it like an emergency and a priority?
No, so certainly the number of out-of-school children that you mentioned in Pakistan is also the number I manage. No, and Pakistan is one of the countries with the largest number of out-of-school children around the world. No, so that clearly shapes up an emergency, and that, as I said before, no, if you don't have an educated population, your possibilities of economic growth will be hampered. So clearly there's need to act to improve the education outcomes in the country. I think it's up to the Pakistanis to really realize what is the power of education and ensure that more resources go into the sector. I come from an institution that's called the Global Partnership for Education, and one of the objectives that we have now is to promote dialogue within the country to secure that the education sector receives proper domestic financing, but also, and at the same time, securing that those resources are distributed in an equitable and efficient way. And of course, those resources will be complemented by resources coming from abroad, like institutions like the Global Partnership for Education, but the main driver and the main source of education financing will be your domestic resources, and that's up to the Pakistani to really to set the right priorities, and as I said before, make sure that the power, the multiplying power of the investments in education really materializes.
And Javier, when you're in Pakistan, I'm sure that under the GPE, you are also engaging with stakeholders, sort of getting a sense of where the country is headed, what the priorities are looking like, and what the on-ground realities are like. Tell me a little bit about what important people are telling you in Pakistan when it comes to education and how seriously they're taking it.
Well, the Global Partnership for Education, the institution I represent, has a very special way of working in the countries like Pakistan. So we promote what we call local education groups that are basically a group formed by the main stakeholders in the education sector. Under our support, in Pakistan, there have been created 4 local education groups, one in Punjab, one in Sindh, one in Balochistan, and one in KP. And again, each of those 4 local education groups gather the main stakeholders at the local level in education. We have representatives of civil society, we have representatives of teachers, we have representatives of UN agencies, we have representatives of the multilateral development banks, and of course, these groups are headed by the government. Each of these groups, we have asked them to pick which is the key priority for the province. And in the 4 cases, the big priority that they have picked is to improve enrollment, but with quality. And focusing on the primary and the lower secondary level, because those are the areas where we need to make the big push now. So later on we can focus on secondary. No? So of course, each of these provinces has its own priority, but in a way, the way that I presented it summarizes what the 4 provinces are thinking of. No? So I would say that here there's a big, that main stakeholders are convinced that the out-enrollment, the number of out-enrollment children has to go down and that quality has to go up. And in these 4 provinces, these local education groups are helping the governments to take key actions to address these challenges. In some cases, with the support of GPE resources, with the support of other partners, and more importantly, in this local education group, there are spaces for the different actors to look for synergies on what they're doing to try to create stronger interventions to address the challenges that we just mentioned.
Right. So, I mean, just for my understanding and clarifying it a bit, the GPE operates with bringing stakeholders together, but then there's also a certain amount of finances that are put into promoting the projects and bringing together those stakeholders for education in the country. Is there something broader that's also being done by GPE, or is it just focused on funding?
No, so GPE has like 2 angles, let's put it that way. On one side, we are the largest fund dedicated exclusively to education around the world. So we mobilize funds from donors that we channel into the countries and into this local education group, in the case of Pakistan, to these 4 provinces. But our big value added is that we create these local education groups that exploit the synergies among the different stakeholders. And these stakeholders, under the leadership of the government, decides how the GPE resources are going to be invested. Right. No? So we make sure through this mechanism that GPE resources really address the priorities that the local community has identified. And of course, under the understanding that the local community is the one that knows best what is happening in the community.
Tell me, Javier, in your experience, what benefit have you experienced or noticed around countries, but also specifically in Pakistan, when these groups are operating effectively, when there is money available, and when money is going to the right places? What is the benefit of such development funds being available to the country and its people?
So, of course, the funds are invested in the activities picked by this local education group. Here in Pakistan, we have activities going from building classroom, developing infrastructure, to promoting remedial classes during the summertime, or improving things that may sound less tangible for the regular person, but are extremely important, like improving the data for the education system, so the education system can work better and better assign the future interventions. No, so the key the intervention that each province does, as I said before, is selected by this local education group. And one key thing that happens in these cases is that as the partners are together and they decide together, they also find complementarities between what they're doing, synergies. No? And that, in a way, maximizes the impact of the resources the GPE is bringing and other partners are bringing, and more importantly, reduces the opportunity of duplication of resources. Not like two partners going and investing in exactly the same thing in the same school. That's, of course, a waste of resources.
So, Javier, I mean, as I said in the start, an important episode for International Day of Education. We are working very closely with UNICEF to understand the realities of education in Pakistan. And I understand that the GPE also works with UNICEF quite extensively. Run me through that process on what those collaborations are looking like and what on-ground work with the UNICEF is happening to make Pakistan more educated.
Well, UNICEF is, of course, one of our key partners in Pakistan, but as I said before, we work through these local education groups. So UNICEF has had a lead role in some of these provinces on creating and helping us to ensure that the functioning of the local education group is adequate. And they also have received some of the resources the GPE is providing Pakistan, and they are executing those resources in our behalf and in behalf of the local education group. So we call, when we assign resources to a country, we call the grant agent to the agency that is managing our resources, and UNICEF is the grant agent of several of our grants currently being implemented in Pakistan and previous grants. Just as a reference, Pakistan has been a member of GPE for more than 10 years and has received approximately $372 million on GPE funds.
And I know that you touched upon a little bit on what the projects look like. You've sort of broken down on what the localization looks like, how bringing the stakeholders together looks like. Tell me a little bit about what the on-ground work looks like. So is the work with the GPE going into building schools, hiring teachers, improving quality of education? What are some of the bigger priorities in terms of tangible things that are happening in the country?
Well, so each province, as I said before, has picked its own priority and its own activities. But in all the provinces, they're working on improving quality and expanding the supply of education services. When I say improving quality, it means that we are doing teacher training. We are improving the type of materials that the students receive. We are ensuring that the students receive those materials. And of course, as I said also before, we are building classrooms and we are helping schools to improve their infrastructure. Now, as you may think, if there is no school, that's a main driver of children out of school, because they don't have where to go. But also, if the school doesn't have good facilities, for example, for girls, maybe girls will not be inclined to attend the school, promoting a dropout among girls. But also, if the quality of education is not at the right level, or if students don't see the value added on going to school, they also may be inclined to drop out. So, to address the big challenges, we have to work improving quality, securing that there is facilities for them to access to education services.
Javier, let's change the course of the conversation slightly. The world is changing quite a lot, and education will always be an important part, but then the right sort of education should also then be a priority. With how things are changing in the realm of artificial intelligence, jobs changing, the nature of work changing, what sort of work does the GPE intend to focus on, especially when it comes to Pakistan, with the changing world and the changing environment around the world?
So definitely the technological progress is putting some challenges into the education sector. No, on one side, the way that you can provide education services is changing. No, kids are more familiar of using tablets or using devices, and they're accessing to AI and other technological progress on a daily basis. But also at the same time, the provision of education services is changing. So the education sector can rely on technology to deliver better education possibilities to students. So GPE, again, of course, we are collecting all the evidence of what's happening, and we put that at disposal of our members, in this case, of our local education group. No? And again, we encourage the local education groups to pick the right investment. Of course, we rely also on the expertise of our partners like UNICEF and other members of the local education group, because they also have a lot of knowledge in terms of what's happening and what are the type of interventions that are delivering good results, and pick the best for the province, for the country.
Right.
No, but again, a lot happening, but we promote that innovation in the sector, of course, but also let's make sure that the innovation that we promote is based on evidence, so we are certain that any investments that are made will deliver results.
That kind of, sort of encapsulates what my next question is also sort of focusing on, and I intend to ask. I know that now, there's so many challenges that the world faces. There's climate challenges, AI that we've just discussed, wars, so much going on. How do we ensure that education gets its due right, its due finances, its due ownership in the global sphere, but also in the sphere of Pakistan? What do we do to sort of ensure that happens?
I think in a way we go back to the beginning to ensure that education is, we need to be sure that education is maybe the best investment that countries can do for the future, and individuals can also do for the future. And resources invested in education, there's ample evidence that they multiply. And so I think that we need to convince policymakers, decision makers, that education outcomes may take time to materialize, but we are sure that they will materialize. That's what all the evidence tells us.
So, Dr. Javier, we in the beginning sort of focused a little bit on, the access to education and the barriers that there are in and around the world. We spoke about many different countries. It is no secret that Pakistan does have unique challenges. I want you to run me through a little bit on understanding what those unique challenges look like today in 2026, and how far we've come in the last maybe one decade, because there has been so much financing that's gone into education.
Yeah, so I would say that the challenges for Pakistan, especially with regard to school children, are heterogeneous depending where you are. So we have challenges for kids in rural areas, challenges for girls in rural areas, challenges for different type of challenges for kids in urban areas. But I would say in general we can summarize that, of course, the first big challenge to attending a school is whether there is a school or not in the locality. So do kids have a school in the neighborhood that they can attend, and a school where they can use transportation to reach or not? So that's and in many areas of the country, it's difficult for kids to reach a school. Then, of course, that's related, and especially with girls. For girls to mobilize tends to be more difficult than for boys for security reasons. So then, are schools there for girls to attend in a safe way or not? So also in some parts of the country, that's challenging. And another important driver of kids remaining at school is the quality of the education system. Now, see, if kids go to school and they perceive that they are not learning, most likely they will not be inclined to participate in school or continue studying. So the quality of school and how to improve the quality of teachers to deliver education services, to keep students engaged, to keep students motivated is also very important with regards of kids remaining in school. But then also there are cultural issues. Does the community or values or does the community value or doesn't value education? So that also will be a key determinant for the community, fathers or mothers to send their children to school. So we also need to work sharing the value of education to the members of the community, and also making the community realize that the key driver of the future economic growth of the community will also depend on the quality of education that the children of the community receives.
Right. Dr. Javier, I mean, when you were speaking, I was just, I couldn't help but think that, we have these problems. We have cultural issues. We have financial issues. We have a long list of issues that you have also alluded to right now. But at the same time, it is no secret that we have a huge population. I mean, 65% of the population is under the age of 35. So that's a big youth bulge that we're looking at. What are some of the immediate things that we can focus on to sort of, make education a priority, in the sense that, these people are getting older, there's more children being born every year, there's an addition of millions of children into the population. What are some of the immediate steps that the country can take?
Let me start, emphasizing the point that you're talking in terms of the demographics. So population is growing very fast now, and we need to secure that population growth translates into economic growth for them and for the country in the future. And that will only be achievable if we properly educate this population. So there's this thing that economists and policymakers call the window of opportunity, demographic window of opportunity. So Pakistan now is in its demographic window of opportunity, but for that window of opportunity to materialize, it's really important that this population is educated and are able to, with high level of human capital, are able to deliver a better, more productive economy in the future. So you need to take urgent measures to try to address. So that really asks you to be creative in terms of how to deal with the issue, for example, of children out of school. So there are several, across the provinces, they are implementing like non-formal education type interventions, which starts on the fact that building a large number of schools in the short term will be very difficult.
Right.
So you need to be really creative, providing education opportunities to those children that won't be able to access a formal school because a formal school has not been built yet. But again, through non-formal education alternatives, that sometimes means that a school type organization works on parallel of school or in the afternoons or in the summer.
Right.
You create opportunities for more people to get educated. And of course now you can also complement this with all the opportunities that technology is providing you. So there are, you can really launch school type interventions through the internet. And again, here the point is how to be creative, how to be ambitious in trying to provide education content, education knowledge, education services to the large number of population that is now in Pakistan and growing day by day. No?
Right. Just building upon the same, so, it is no secret that there is also a major educational disparity when it comes to the rich and the poor, the urban and the rural areas of Pakistan. And when we discuss the same, there has been a lot of chatter in Pakistan about a single national curriculum, so, streamlining everything for everyone. How do you think we can close the gap between these centers where one end of the spectrum is getting such high quality education, world class almost, and the other it's not even the basics that we're touching?
I think that one thing that we are promoting from GPE is that, and we're asking the local education groups that I mentioned before and the government, is to really measure the quality of education. So increase their capacity to assess if students are learning or not, and compare the learning that is happening to the standard that they set.
Right.
So if for us, having the information on what's really happening or assessing the extent of these disparities is the really first measure to start addressing them. No, and one thing that we suggest local education groups on how to invest with GP resources is focus on the most the students are lagging behind and the most marginalized, especially with a focus on exactly what you were saying, reduce disparities, bring everyone together. To secure that education benefits all in the same way.
On the same, I mean, and I know that we touched upon this slightly when we were talking about UNICEF earlier. Just run me through, the importance of these partnerships when you were talking about UNICEF, when you're talking about local bodies, and when you're talking about governments and other stakeholders. That partnership, working along with these stakeholders, how important has that been in your experience, and how effective does that tend to be to actually outreach the masses when it comes to education?
In the last 4 days, I have met with the local education group in Sindh, in Punjab, in Balochistan, and in KP, and I could appreciate an incredible dynamism and interest of all the stakeholders to work together to address the issues. Now, of course, the challenges are huge, but again, a key factor or a key element that brings this local education group is that partners complement their actions in a way of that adding up, we will get something bigger.
Right.
No, the result will be larger than the parts. No, and that's what we see when they explain me like what UNICEF is doing with GP resources, why other grant agents are doing with GP resources, what the government is doing with their own resources. Let's remember that the big player in the education sector, of course, is the government, and what other partners are doing with their resources. No. But then you see how everything fits together, and builds something that, as I said before, is larger than each of the parts. And that's exactly what we want to promote to the local education group, looking synergies, complementarities. There are a lot to share between the different stakeholders. And so we really need to promote that sharing to happen.
Absolutely.
And of course, under the leadership of the government, because they are the real ones that at the end will benefit. And of course, they are the ones that invest the largest resources in the sector.
So I suppose there is an emphasis on the synergy that is created by the GPE framework. And I get why that is so important, because we have also seen when we've done reports on education, how the breakdown of different institutions working individually and then coming together, how the two differ between each other. I want to know, when we're talking about International Day of Education, we're so interested about the future of education in Pakistan and how Pakistan will sort of shape as a country as we go forward with the current statistics and the current numbers. But that also goes hand in hand with the future of GPE and GPE in Pakistan. So maybe touch a little bit upon the future of GPE and then the future of Pakistan when it comes to education.
Yes, so So I think first, it's urgent that Pakistan improve its education indicators, especially given the context of the demographic window that we were mentioning before, the demographic window for opportunity. So population is growing. For that to materialize in a much more prosperous Pakistan, we need that population to be fully educated. So to achieve that, of course, we need to reduce the out-of-school children. We need to improve the learning that's happening in the classroom, and with, of course, benefiting from what technology is bringing, but also benefiting from the synergy that different stakeholders can bring together to the education process. And when I say that, I also mean that we should make sure that, for example, that the education sector hears the private sector. The education sector hears stakeholders that may not be traditionally involved in the education sector, but that we know that will demand labor force in the future, so they have a say in terms of how the labor force should look. And sometimes sometimes they just are not familiar or do not participate in the education decision. So, in a way, strengthen their partnership, make sure that everyone collaborates in improving the education outcome, because at the end of the day, education, we all have to work on education because it's a major challenge. GPE. So GPE, of course, Pakistan is a very important country from us. We have, as I mentioned before, we have provided more than 370 million in the last 10 years or so, and we aim to keep collaborating with Pakistan. GPE is now in our replenishment campaign. We do replenishment campaign every 5 years, and so we don't know exactly how many resources, what will be the amount of resources that we will be able to collect, but depending on that, we will secure an allocation for Pakistan with the idea of keep contributing to the sector, but more importantly, or at the same time, we will also keep working with the local education groups, strengthening the mechanism of the local education group, helping them to promote these synergies under the leadership of the government, to ensure that also the resources that different partners bring into the sector are spent in the most efficient and equitable way. And we will also be promoting the dialogue in the country to secure that domestic finance, the decision related to domestic finance, really take into account the multiplying power of education, and are done in an equitable and efficient way.
Well, I hope you're able to do that and much more. Before I wrap this up, I just want you to have a message for anyone that's watching this on the International Day of Education, any policymaker, stakeholder, any young person in Pakistan looking towards the future and perhaps finding a bit of hope.
Well, after all, of course, I'm a strong advocate for education. I'm strongly convinced of the power of education to promote economic growth and to promote individual well-being, and again, education is a multiplier. Let's take the advantage of that, and let's keep investing in education.
It's beautifully said. Thank you so much, Dr. Javier, for being at Pakistan Observer, for being a part of this podcast, and for so candidly sharing your insights. Thank you.